Hey, I'm Bob at ILikeToMakeStuff, and today we're gonna make one of the weirdest things I've ever made. My 10-year-old son wants to be a Hobbit for Halloween, and in the movies, Hobbits have big feet. So we're gonna make my 10-year-old son a pair of shoes that look like my feet. Let's give it a shot. Now the idea of this project is pretty simple. Whether we can actually pull it off, that is yet to be seen. My plan is to make a mold of my size 10 feet. Then I'm gonna have my 10-year-old son stand in that mold and we're gonna pour silicone around his foot. And then, if it works, we'll have a silicone shoe that fits him, but the outside of it will look like the outside of my feet. It's a strange idea and it might not work, but we're gonna give it a shot. And the first thing we have to do is make a mold of my feet. The box is done, but for some reason I left my shoe on when I did it, so it was a little bit too big. I just added a little separator to make the volume a little bit smaller, and hopefully this is way taller than I need it to be. I don't want to fill this entire thing up because that would be a lot of alginate, which is what I'm going to use to make the mold. This is alginate powder. I've never used this before, but basically you mix it with water, you can pour a mold, it'll set up pretty quickly, and you can pull a few different casts from this, but it doesn't go super far. But I think it'll be a good way to do this because when I go to pour the silicone inside this, it's not gonna stick to this. Normally I would make my molds out of silicone, but since my cast is silicone, you can't really do that. So I'm looking at the instructions here. Basically, it's 1 part water to 1 part alginate powder by volume. So I can mix it up pretty easily, but the pot life is only 5 minutes. And that's 5 minutes before it's like setting up. After that, the cure time is 8 minutes. So I've got 5 minutes to get this mixed, get it on my foot, get my foot in the mold, and then pour the rest of it on top of my foot and film it before it starts to cure. Now, before I start mixing this stuff up, I'm really trying to figure out the logistics of how I get it all mixed and applied and all that stuff, because I'm not gonna have a lot of time to work and I really don't wanna mess this up. So one of the things I was thinking about is that I need to be standing within the mold because your foot is in a different shape when you're standing than when you're sitting. So I need to be standing, but I also want to make sure that the mold goes all the way around the underside of my foot. So I think I'm going to put a block of wood inside the mold and stand on that. And this block of wood will be smaller than the outside of my foot, hopefully smaller than my son's foot, so that he can still stand on this and get all of the silicone poured around his foot in the shape of my foot. It's such a weird thing. Okay, I think I'm ready to start mixing. I don't know why I'm this nervous about it because it's just alginate. It's not a big deal, but this is like totally new to me and I feel like there's a big time crunch. So here we go. I've got water in here. I know how much, so I just have to mix the same amount of powder into there. Hopefully I've got enough. Let's see how it goes. Oops. See, this is the kind of stuff that I wasn't planning on. It looks delicious. This video is sponsored by Factor. Now, Factor delivers meals directly to your door. These are not frozen meals, they are fresh meals, and you have about 7 days to eat them, which won't be a problem because they're very good and you'll run through them really quickly. Now, for me personally, I tend to forget to stop working to eat lunch, mainly because I don't want to have to make anything, I don't want to have to clean up. But with Factor, neither one of those things are an issue. You get the meal, it takes about 2 minutes in a microwave to heat it up, or in my case, I use a conventional oven, it takes about 7 minutes. And as soon as you're done, you can go back to work or whatever you're doing because there's no cleanup. These days, Factor also offers breakfast items, smoothies, shakes, juices, and a bunch of other stuff. They've got a wide array of healthy, fresh, never frozen food that you can eat whenever you're ready. Right now, you can go to factor75.com and use the code ILTMS50, and this will give you 50% off your first box of Factor. That is a great deal. It's good food for a good price. Skip the fast food, get Factor. Again, that's factor75.com, or hit the link down in the description, use the code ILTMS50. That's 50% off the first box. Big thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. Okay, I think it's mixed pretty well. And one of the things that I learned is that you want to coat your foot or whatever in the alginate before you put it in the mold so that you don't have air bubbles show up like in between your toes and stuff. And this is going to be super gross, but I got to do it anyway. So I'm going to do this. Oh, that is Truly disgusting. Oh boy. Okay, it's just starting to set. I can feel it, it's like sucking my foot down into it. And what's funny is that one of the things you're supposed to do is have a plastic knife so that you can cut yourself out of this. I forgot that. So I'm gonna be stuck with a big block for a foot until I can get a plastic knife or something safe to cut my foot out. I also remembered that I forgot to put mold release on my foot. I feel like it'll probably come out all right, but I don't know yet. Okay, I don't know what I was so worried about because that actually went really well. And looking in here at the mold, it looks like it's really good. I mean, there might be some bubbles in there that I can't see, but I won't be able to see those until we get it cast. But all of the weird little shapes of my foot, even the little imprint of my socks are in the mold. Probably should have thought about that. Also, my foot still feels really gross, but I know it worked, and so now I can do the other one. Okay, we're ready to mix the silicone. For this, I'm gonna use Dragon Skin FX Pro. It's what Frank Ippolito used when he made my hand copy, so I'm gonna use it as well. I'm also gonna put a little bit of pigment in there to see if I can get it kind of the same color as our skin, but I don't know if that's gonna work or not. Once I start mixing this stuff, I've got 12 minutes of working time before I have to start getting it in there before it's gonna start setting up. And then there's about a 40-minute time where he's gonna have to sit still. And in that working time, I've still gotta degas it. I've gotta get it into the mold, get the air bubbles out of the toes. There's a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna start and I'm just gonna go and I'll let you know how it turns out. That's so gross. So your toes are right there. Oh, they're right there. They're sticking through. Oh, it's just barely working. All right, so the problem is that his toes are coming out right there.
This one worked. This one worked.
So my first attempt worked, but it didn't really work. I ended up with some feet, but the problem was that my son's feet were too close to the top of the mold. So it's a really thin material, and in some places it didn't even get any silicone in. So I've got another plan, even though this is an expensive thing to do again. I think this plan was almost right. Having the block down there for me to stand on gave the right shape to the bottom of the foot, but I really needed to take that block out before we made the cast. So I'm gonna replace it with a cutout of my son's foot. I'm gonna stand on this when I make the mold, and then I'm gonna take this out when we make the cast so that he actually sinks down into the mold a little bit, adding more space to the top of his foot between the top of the mold. We're gonna give it one more shot, and if it doesn't work, I don't know what we're gonna do. Hey, look at that.
Look at that.
Not that I expect anybody watching to ever replicate this project, but if you do, the second version worked way better. Check this out. Adding a space for my son to sit down in gave me a lot more material up here on top of the foot. The mold turned out better, it's sturdier. This is the way to go for sure. They definitely turned out a little raw chicken color, so I'm gonna need to paint them at least a little bit so they don't look so dead. And I experimented with that, and it turns out that painting silicone is actually really difficult. For the paint, luckily, I had some unusable feet that I could test on. So I mixed up this Psycho paint. It's a 2-part silicone. You add the pigment to it, and then you can paint it on, either with a brush or with an airbrush. By itself, it is way, way too thick to use in an airbrush, so you have to use a solvent. I didn't have the right solvent, so I tested out WD-40. Oddly enough, this actually did work, but you would have to add a whole lot of it to get the silicone thin enough to spray. But while trying to figure that out, I actually just wiped some of it on with a rubber glove and smeared it around, and all of the little pigment went down into the pores of the skin and the cracks and all that stuff, and actually kind of works. It doesn't have to be meticulously painted, they just have to look gross and dirty, and that's actually pretty easy to do. Now for the correct solvent, you're supposed to use naphtha, this stuff, and you actually can't get this in California, I don't think. So I went out and got some, I'm gonna try it, but I think instead of trying to airbrush this, for now, I'm just gonna mix up a couple of different kind of skin and dirt colors and just wipe them on, put them in between the toes, and just try to make the feet look gross. This is such a strange thing because I feel like I should be painting them well or trying to paint them well, but really they just need to look gross. And I'm so used to silicone things being a quick operation where you only have a few minutes of working time. The curing time on this stuff is like 2 hours. So I have more than enough time to get it right, take my time, but then even if I took my time, all I'm trying to do is make feet look gross. Anyway, I've got a base color down on these. It's beginning to look a little bit better, but I think actually what I'm gonna do is just take some of the pigment and kind of put it on here on my glove and just kind of wipe it around the bottom of the foot and just try to dirty it up now that there is some silicone on the surface that's still wet. I'm not entirely sure that I should be proud of that or not, but I'm kind of proud of how it turned out. Like, they look like really dirty, gross feet, and it wasn't really that hard to do. It was mainly just kind of smearing stuff around and adding color as it needed to be. I also started to understand the Psycho paint or the silicone paint thing a little bit. It is thick, and that's good because you can put it down and add pigment to it, or you can put pigment in it before you lay it down. It gives you a lot of options, and then if you thin it enough, I suppose you could airbrush it. But regardless, the feet are now gross, but they're not gross enough yet. After the silicone cures up, we have one more thing to do, and that's add fake hair. Now there's one more little thing I gotta figure out before we do the hair, and that is how to stop these things from getting torn up on the concrete. This silicone is really soft, and so if you were to walk around on this, especially with the thin stuff, it's just gonna tear and fall off. So my original plan was to take one of these replacement soles for a shoe, cut it down, and glue it to the bottom of this. I didn't think about the fact that you can't really glue anything to silicone except silicone without special adhesives that I don't have. So my current plan is to just cut out this bottom section that doesn't need to be there anyway, have my son wear a pair of socks, and then glue a piece of this tread to the bottom of the socks. So he'll be wearing the socks, walking on the tread, and his foot will be wrapped in this other foot. I think it'll work. It's like cleaning a fish. So now it's time for the hair, and I don't know how to do this, to be honest. I have no clue. My plan is to mix up some of this silicone or some other silicone and kind of brush it on the tops of the foot and then just kind of squish fake hair into it. If you know anything about hobbits at all, it's that they have really hairy feet. That's what it says in the books. It actually doesn't say that they have big feet. So our goal is to completely cover the top of these with fake hair however we can. They are so gross, but also kind of perfect. Now these things don't look movie prop quality, but I think they actually turned out pretty good considering how expensive they were and how I had to do the whole thing twice. I do think that painting the socks kind of a skin color will help them fade away, so I'm gonna do that before Halloween. But overall, I'm really happy with this. I'm happy with taking an idea and being able to pull it off, and I'm really happy with the fact that my son thinks they're disgusting and hilarious, and he's excited to wear them for Halloween. Feel free to let me know how gross you think these things are down in the comments. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Now it's time for bloopers. Oh, it's very slippery. Basically silicone that you can add pigment to. Use the same pigments, pigments? And I just mixed it up. Turns out it's super thick, way too thick to airbrush. Wow, wow. Wow. Now luckily I had an, this is so weird.